A Soviet submarine was carrying a nuclear torpedo. The captain wanted to launch it. One man said no, and that decision may have saved the world. October 27th, 1962. For a few terrifying hours, the world stood on the edge of nuclear war. American bombers were already in the air. Soviet nuclear submarines were surrounded. Missiles in Cuba were ready. One wrong decision, one nervous commander, one misunderstood signal, and the Cold War could have turned into nuclear fire. This was the day the world almost ended. Just days earlier, American spy planes discovered something shocking. Soviet nuclear missiles were being installed on the island of Cuba, only 90 miles from Florida. The United States, led by John F. Kennedy, saw this as an unacceptable threat. Across the ocean, Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev believed the missiles were necessary to balance American nuclear weapons in Europe. Two nuclear superpowers were staring directly at each other. The world held its breath. President Kennedy made a risky decision. Instead of launching an immediate attack, the United States announced a naval blockade around Cuba. No Soviet ships carrying weapons would be allowed through. American warships moved into position. Soviet cargo ships continued toward the island. For a moment, it seemed like the first shots of World War III could happen at sea. Then came October 27th, the most dangerous day of the Cold War. Historians later called it Black Saturday. Everything began to go wrong at once. Over Cuba, an American U-2 spy plane was shot down by a Soviet missile. The pilot, Major Rudolph Anderson, was killed. In Washington, military leaders demanded retaliation. Some urged Kennedy to begin airstrikes on Cuba immediately. The nuclear countdown had begun, but the most terrifying moment happened far below the ocean surface. Deep in the Caribbean Sea, American destroyers were hunting a Soviet submarine. The submarine was called B-59. The crew had been underwater for days. Temperatures inside reached nearly 50 degrees Celsius. Communication with Moscow was lost. The crew believed war might already have started, and on board was a nuclear torpedo. American ships began dropping practice depth charges, signals meant to force the submarine to surface. But the Soviet crew didn't know that. Inside the submarine, the captain believed the Americans were attacking. He ordered the nuclear torpedo to be prepared. One launch could have triggered nuclear war, but Soviet protocol required 3 officers to agree. 2 agreed, 1 refused. His name was Vasili Arkhipov. Arkhipov argued with the captain. He insisted they should surface instead of launching the weapon. Minutes passed, but those minutes may have saved the world. Finally, the captain agreed. The submarine surfaced. The nuclear torpedo was never fired. The next day, negotiations ended the crisis. The Soviet Union agreed to remove missiles from Cuba. The United States secretly agreed to remove nuclear missiles from Turkey. The crisis ended, but historians later realized something chilling. On October 27, 1962, the world came closer to nuclear war than at any other moment in history. And the man who may have saved humanity was someone almost nobody knew. Sometimes the fate of the world depends on a single decision made in the dark.